was a child, I just loved to make paper chains. I'm not sure what it was about them, but as they grew longer and longer and longer, I was so excited to see them long and to see that I had made something of such great length and of such beauty. Because when I was a child, I thought paper chains were so beautiful. You know what we used to do with them? Oh, we're all busy on our arts and crafts now. We used to decorate our Christmas tree with them. How many of you ever decorated your Christmas tree with them? Raise your hands real high so I can see them. We did that too. We would go, we lived on 10 acres. We would go out back in the farm and get a cedar tree, and we would bring it in, and we would decorate it with popcorn and paper chains and whatever else my mother could come up with. So I wanted to see, when did paper chains come into existence? And I looked on the internet, and it was kind of obscure. It was kind of hard to find. But it was suggested that paper chains were first started in the Victorian era. And in the Victorian era, Christmas trees came over from Germany, and we began to do Christmas trees in England and different countries. And one of the things the Victorians did was to make a lot of their ornaments, and one of the things was paper chains. When I made paper chains as a child, to me, they represented love. Now, do you know why? The reason was because when I would finish my paper chain, and as a child, you know, I didn't get them all cut exactly right. They would be different sizes and different lengths and different colors. Yours are all precisely cut to 1.5 inches, I want you to know. I let Mike try cutting them, and he had them off-sized, so I had to get rid of those and redo them, some of them, because I wanted my paper chains exactly right. Anyway, to look beautiful. But I would take them to my mother, and I would show them to my mother, and do you know what she would do? What do mothers do when your child brings art to them? Well, yeah, you hang it on the fridge, but she would hug me. She would give me a great big hug and a smile, and she would tell me it was beautiful. Now, do you think it was beautiful? Like I say, it wasn't exactly cut right, and back then we had to do it with flour and paste. How many of you make flour and paste glue? Yeah. It was a little harder to stick than the Scotch tape that we're using today. But to me, it represented a chain of love, because I knew as soon as it was finished and I took it to my mother, I was going to receive love from her. I was going to be hugged and caressed, and I even made them in the summertime. Now, we didn't hang them on the fridge. Mom would actually drape them on her curtains and pin them to her curtains. So you could almost always find a paper chain in our house that represented all the love I had in making it and all the love that she gave me back. We are talking today about the chain of love. Where does love start? Where does love start? God. God is love. That is the simple, profound truth that I want you to hear today. God is love. There is no love. There is not love between brother and sister, husband and wife, children and family. There is no love without God. God is the source of love. Love emanates from God. We as a world would not know love if it was not for God. God began and is the beginning of all love. 1 John 4:8 says this. It says, "Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love." He goes on to say in verse 16, "And so we know and rely on the love God has for us. God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God, and God lives in them." You see, it is a link, it is a chain of love. And it begins with God. God is love. God the Father then links to God the Son. And God the Son showed his life by giving his life on the cross. Excuse me. If I don't get that away, you're going to hear that. How's the chain coming? How's this side? Hold your chain up there. Let's see. Oh, it's getting long. All right. Keep connecting. Keep passing it back there. Balcony, have you got your chain done? And you've sent it down? All right. They sent it down. It starts with God the Father, and it goes to God the Son. And God the Son, Jesus says, as the Father loved me, so I love you. And so Jesus sends the love on to us to share with others. Christ's love was evident when he went to the cross, when he laid down his life for us. He obeyed, he said he kept his Father's commands. He was obedient to the cross. You will obey. Some of the versions, when we get to that scripture, would you put the scripture back up for me, Jeff? The scripture says, if you keep my commands. And some of the versions say, if you obey my commands. Most of the versions have taken the word obey out, just like we've taken it out of the marriage ceremony. You know, we promise to love and obey, and we've taken that out most of the time because we don't like the word obedience in our society today. It's kind of doesn't fit in with us. We just don't like obedience. But Jesus is very definitely saying here, if you love me, you will keep my commands. I was struck, how many of you were here to hear the African Children's Choir? I was struck by how those children, the 20 children in that choir, ranged from 8 to 12, and I was struck by how obedient they were to their chaperones and to their leaders. And some of you had them in your home, and you know firsthand what it was like, how obedient the children were. Whatever they were told, they did. And they had very strict rules. They were told, the host families were told the children were not allowed to have any television viewing, no computer use, and no candy. Can you imagine us telling American 8-year-olds no television, no computer, and no candy? And Corey likes it for Braden, he said. Can you imagine what our 8 to 12-year-olds would react like? But these children were just joyful. They didn't have a problem at all. And in fact, they had been touring for a year, so it's not like, oh, we'll tour for a little bit and then we'll go home and we'll have television and computer and candy. No, that was part of their life, part of the rules that they had to follow. And there were other rules too. But it was interesting to me because they would bring sack lunches from their host families, and they would sit down to eat them, and they would open them up, and they would take them out, and it was like a present to them. It was a surprise. What would be in the sack lunch? And occasionally they would pull out something and they would look at it, and you could tell by the look on their face that they knew that this broke a rule, that this was something they weren't to have. And I watched them as they were doing this, and I thought, well, now, are they going to hide that in their pocket? Are they going to eat it anyway? What will happen? No, all of the children, even the oldest, the 10 and the 11-year-olds, would get up and take the candy over to the adult chaperone and would show them the item. Usually it was something that had maybe some M&Ms in it or something. And they would say, may I have this, yes or no? And the adult chaperone would answer. And if it was no, the child didn't throw a fit. They didn't whine. They didn't pout. They didn't say, oh, well, it's just a little bit of candy. Can I please have it? No. No, they turned around and they gave the adult chaperone a big smile and said, all right, Auntie Ryan, and they went back to their seat and they enjoyed the rest of their food. They left the candy or whatever forbidden item it was that they weren't supposed to have with the chaperone. Joy, real joy, and obedience mingled together. It was an amazing sight to see because I experienced the opposite as I work with children and see children in our families here today. And it's not just children. Don't hear me harping about that. It's all of us. We want what we want when we want it. We don't think about following commands or keeping commands or being obedient. But Jesus said, keep my commands and remain in my love, and your joy will be complete. Complete. I want you to think about this. I want you to think about how profound and simple that is. Keep my commands and remain in my love, that chain of love, and your joy will be complete. Well, that sounds easy enough. We keep a few commands, remain in God's love, and our joy will be complete. So, what commands should we keep? What do you think? What commands should we keep? Do you know any? Love each other is what John's going to say, isn't it? But what other commands might he be talking about? Oh, the 10 Commandments, somebody said over here. Let's see how many of those we can get. Are you ready? Bible trivia quiz time. All right, reality life show or however, whatever those quiz things are. 10 Commandments, who can give me one? Oh, no, don't be looking those up, Rick Crady. Did you see that? He had his Bible out. Whoa. Exodus 20, by the way. Come on, let's see how many we can get. Thou shalt not kill. No idols. Honor your father and mother. We already did don't kill. Don't steal. No other gods before me. No false witness. Don't covet. Adultery. Do not commit adultery. We're down to 2. Where are you at today? Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. There's only one left. It's number 2. It says first, honor the Lord. And then what's number 2? First is, you shall have no other gods, and you shall not make any graven images. Idols. Idols. Very good. You said idol? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear it. That's my bad ear. Anyway, so the 10 Commandments we have in the Old Testament, then what do we have in the New Testament? We have the 2 great commandments. What are those? Love God and love your neighbor. Love others. Love God and love others. So, what do you think? He says, if you keep my commandments, if you keep my commands, remain in my love, and you will have complete joy. Which ones is he talking about? Well, in this passage of Scripture, he highlights just one. What is the one he says we are to keep? At the very end, turn to the next page. At the very end, he says, my commandment, go ahead. This is my commandment. Love each other. Love each other. Do you love one another? Do you love one another? Oh, come on. Let's be honest. We're in church. Sometimes we don't even like each other. We don't want to be struck by lightning right here. It's hard to just like each other sometimes, isn't it? Love one another. Love one another. Wow. It sounds so easy and it's so hard to do because we're so egocentric. We turn it around, don't we? When I was a child in Sunday school, we learned the word joy. The way to have joy in your life was Jesus, J, others, O, and Y, yourself. And put them in that order. To honor Jesus first, others, love second, and myself last. And what do? Honestly, we flip it completely upside down and we put ourselves first. Me, myself, and I. That's the 3. We don't need any others. We're egocentric. Our world revolves around ourselves. And if we do have a little love left over, well, that's for our children, our grandchildren, our family, those who we really like. If we have a little more left over, well, then that's for our friends that are like us, the people who look just like us. If there's a little extra, well, we might branch out a little, but not a lot. Love one another. You know, one of the things that's interesting to me is that we're not even really good at that in our own church. We don't even know one another here. We often are in our own little circles where connection people know connection people, and 1045 people know 1045 people, and Bereans know Bereans, and seekers know seekers, and Maranatha people stay with Maranatha people. And do you know the person sitting beside you? Do you know the person behind you? That's because it was still your family, right? What about the person behind you? Look over there at the other side of the church. Have you ever noticed there? There's people on the other side. Some Sunday you all ought to come in and switch sides. That would be so fun to see faces in the opposite places. You know, we wonder why our life isn't as happy as we want it. We wonder why life isn't turned out like we expected, why everything isn't just all roses and sunshine. And sometimes it might be that chain is broken. That chain of love is broken. You know, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And I can assure you that God is not the weak link. God's love is amazing. God's love covers a multitude of sin. God's love surrounds us, envelops us. And we just soak it in and never send it out to share. This is my command, that you love one another. Where are our chains? Who has our chains? Let's put them all together. Another one? All right, Corey's getting that one. I hope that this visual symbol that has all of your names on it will remind you as you go this Memorial Weekend that you are a part of a chain that starts with God, that flows through Jesus Christ, that comes to us, and hopefully it does not end there, but it flows out. Not just to this family, not just to this thing, but to the community and to the world beyond. You are part of God's love of chain of love. Would you pray with me?